Hello everyone, this is Kristen Mary and thank you for tuning in to my channel. This video is going to be a little bit different from what I normally do, but I thought it was something important to talk about because a lot of people ask me about it, and that is working as an adjunct. So what I want to do is debunk some of the things that people have said and other YouTubers have said about working as an adjunct. So first things first, a lot of people say that you cannot move up in a company working as an adjunct or at a college working as an adjunct. That is absolutely not true. You can definitely move up as an adjunct working for any college that you're at. If that college, most colleges have adjuncts, first of all, okay? And then those adjuncts is the majority of the staff that's working there. There are a lot of adjuncts that get hired full-time. You can move on to a permanent position as a full-time professor, and then you can start working towards your tenure. So you can absolutely work at a job, at a college, and get hired on permanently as from moving on from an adjunct to a permanent position at a college. Something else that people say is the pay is terrible. Well, it depends on how you look at it. So you're not going to get paid anywhere near what a full-time professor gets paid to be an adjunct. However, there are some colleges that do pay fairly well. Now, you typically get paid one amount per class. So it could be, I don't know, $1,500, for example, per class that you teach. However, the way that you get paid, some of the ways that you would get paid is they may split that up over a course of months. So if you divide that into, say, a 15-week class in which you're probably working about 3 months, that's probably not going to be that much, right? However, some colleges will give you the whole amount at one time, but that's per class. So if you're teaching more than one course, lovely, because you bring in more income. Also, I do want to say this. You do need a second source of income. You cannot survive off of adjunct pay. Now, the thing is, some people it doesn't matter. So for example, if you have a spouse that works, you may not need to make more than, however much you're making as an adjunct. On the flip side of the coin, you will have to have, if you don't have another source of income, you will need to have another source of income. But honestly, we all should have multiple streams of income. So no, you cannot really survive off of just adjunct pay as a single person without having any other source of income. But it doesn't mean that you can't advance where you are and eventually get hired on permanently and make more money. And what better, who else would they want to hire to come in when they already have adjuncts there? Of course, they want to offer those adjuncts positions sometimes before bringing in other professors that are full-time. It's not always the case, but more than likely. Also, you can work more than one college. But here's kind of an issue with that. Most schools are going to require that per class you have at least 2 hours of office hours. And if you have an office hours, you have to calculate that into however many classes you're working. So if you're going to 3 or 4 different campuses to teach at 3 or 4 different colleges, it's going to be hard to juggle office hours. You can teach classes online, but you also still have to have office hours for their classes. And speaking of office, a lot of other people say that you won't have an actual office as an adjunct. That's not true either. So here's the thing. As an adjunct, most adjuncts have one small office or a big office with multiple desks where adjuncts work. But depending on the college, sometimes you will get your own office. So I work as an adjunct as well, and I have my own office. So it's not true that you're just going to be in this room and not actually offer an office, especially if you're doing a lot of work and you are being recognized for the work that you do as an adjunct. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to address. You do need to have multiple sources of income as an adjunct. However, you can move up in the company as an adjunct, move up to a permanent position or a full-time position as a professor, or some schools already call you a professor if you're an adjunct. So it just depends on what your degree is. You do need to have a master's degree though, in whatever. It doesn't matter. You cannot go on as an adjunct with a bachelor's. You have to have a master's in something. You can also teach multiple different courses. So for me, I teach psychology courses, but I'm also getting ready to teach education courses. So it just depends on what your degree is in, and whatever if you're working on your doctorate degree or whatever the case. If you're a doctor like me, my master's degree is in psychology, bachelor's and all of that, but the doctorate that I'm working on is education. So it does open you up for you to be able to teach multiple classes. But you also want to take a look at, again, you don't want to go to a whole bunch of different campuses to try to bring in that income, because then you're going to have office hours, and it's just not enough hours in the day. So you can definitely move up. You can get hired permanent or full-time. You can work towards your tenure once you get your doctorate degree. And you probably hear my dog in the background. Sorry about that. But anyway, and you can have an office. You can have an office, your own private office, as an adjunct professor. So I hope that makes it very clear to some of you all that have questions about being an adjunct, and maybe you've watched a lot of videos and they say different things, 10 ways of, 10 reasons why you shouldn't be an adjunct, or 12 reasons why you should, or whatever the case. You can actually grow, and really, become something great in what you want to do starting off as an adjunct. It's not once an adjunct, always an adjunct. No, companies do recognize the work that you do. So keep that in mind. So again, I hope that you like this video. Please hit the subscribe button so that you can get more videos like this. Although I don't think it's going to be on adjuncts, but who knows. And hit the notifications button so that you will be able to get all of my videos in the future. So thank you for watching. Be with you next time.